Hello, everyone. Welcome. We're just going to wait a couple seconds to allow folks to filter in. And please feel free to enjoy our opening slide and get pumped for our chat today. How you doing, Lee? Are you pumped for our chat today?
I am super pumped. Absolutely.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us. I know I'm excited for it. So
Yeah.
okay, so just a few housekeeping items. My name is Jenna Quinn, and it is my pleasure as the Assistant Director of Alumni Engagement to welcome you to today's 49er Industry Chat. To let everyone here know, this session is being recorded. And so what that's going to mean to you is that a recording of this chat will be available online at CSULB.edu/alumni. And it will be available for you to view again, to share with a friend, to share with a colleague, anyone that you might think would get some good info out of this. Since this is a webinar format, we're just going to encourage all of you to use the Q&A box to submit any questions that you have for our guest speaker. You don't have to wait until the end. If whenever that question comes into your mind, just pop it into the Q&A. And so with that, I'm happy to welcome our guest speaker today, Lee Orquiola. Lee graduated from CSULB in 2001, and in 2004, he earned his law degree from Southwestern University School of Law. Currently, he is a veteran prosecutor for 17 years at the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office. He's worked in various assignments within the office and has tried more than 70 jury trial cases, which is a lot. In his spare time, he enjoys live sports, travel, and spending time with family and friends. Lee, thanks so much for being here with us here today.
You're welcome, and it's a pleasure to be here. I'm very excited. So everybody, this is kind of a little overview of how to become a prosecutor. As you heard, I'm a deputy district attorney for LA County, but there are different positions that you can hold to be a prosecutor in the city attorney's office. You can go into the military and do justice advocate general, or known as JAG. So there's different ways to be a prosecutor, but I'm going to just kind of give you a little bit of background of how I did it, and for those who are interested, perhaps you can follow these tips in my path. Okay, so but before I get started, I just want to make sure that it's clear that I'm not here on behalf as a representative of the DA's office, the LA County District Attorney's office. That everything I'm going to be saying here is going to be from my experience for 17 years as a prosecutor, and they're going to be just essentially my views, my ideas that I've gained through this career path. Okay, so I just want to make sure that was clear. All right, so a little bit of myself. I went to Cal State Long Beach, started in '96, graduated in 2001. Thereafter, went to law school, graduated in 2004, took the bar exam in 2004. And after that, I did civil litigation. I did medical malpractice defense for about a year. And then the DA's office was hiring, which is the reason why I went to law school. And I applied, unfortunately, was hired. In my 17 years in the office, I worked at various courthouses. And the way it works in the DA's office, there's about like 1,000 deputy DAs. The actual district attorney is elected by the people. There's an election, and once that DA is chosen by the people, and he has the power to deputize attorneys to basically prosecute felonies and misdemeanors within the LA County jurisdiction. So when I first started, I worked in downtown. That courthouse. I worked in Downey, Whittier, there's an airport courthouse. I worked in Compton, I worked in Watts. So various areas in the county, prosecuting misdemeanors, felonies. And misdemeanors are essentially crimes that are less than a year of jail if you commit a misdemeanor. And then felonies can range from anywhere for a year plus to even life, depending on the crime. And then I moved on and specialized in my felony prosecution, so that I moved up to our hardcore gang unit, which was a unit that essentially focused on gang homicide. So cases where a gang would go into rival gang territory and commit a drive-by or cases of that nature. Thereafter, about 5 years, I moved over to our Justice System Integrity Division, it's called JSID. And that's a unit where we actually investigated and prosecuted unlawful shootings by police officers. So we hear a lot of shootings in the news today. And those cases are investigated, and the investigation is then presented to my office in the JSID unit. And we review it and we decide whether or not there's enough evidence to go forward against that particular police officer for an unlawful shooting. And then I did that about a year and a half. And then I came to my current assignment, where I am a supervisor in a unit called the Complex Litigation Unit. And we focus on serious juvenile offenses, so murders, rapes, some very serious cases. So that's just a little background about me. And so really, you're probably asking yourself, well, what is the DA's office? What are they about? Well, it was founded back in 1850. Okay, this office has been around for a long time. And there's been 43 district attorneys. So these are all individuals who've been elected by the people. And they are then responsible for all the DAs, district attorneys in the office, the deputies, such as myself. And our main, I guess, duty is to essentially get police reports from local law enforcement agencies. Will present a police investigation, and we decide whether or not there's enough evidence to file that case. If there's not, we reject the case. If there is, we'll file the case. When we file the case, then we actually are in court, just like you see in the movies or TV shows, and we are responsible for moving that case all the way to either settling the case, where we give the defendant, who we call the person who's accused of crime, we call them the defendant once the case is charged, and we either settle the case with the defendant or we go to trial against the defendant. So there's two avenues there. Or sometimes the investigation takes a turn and turns out we have the wrong person, or there's not enough evidence and we dismiss the case. So that's essentially what we do. There's approximately, as I stated earlier, about 1,000 DAs in our office right now. I think a little less. We've lost a lot with attrition and whatnot. But it's the largest prosecutorial office in the United States. So it's a very big office. LA County is, I believe, 10 million people. So it's a lot of jurisdiction area that we have. All right, so now you know a little bit about the DA's office, and I just want to tell you why I joined. And perhaps, for those of you on the fence who are kind of interested in becoming a DA, these reasons may reach out to you. So, when I was in Long Beach, I actually was a computer science major. I was a big computer guy in high school, and I figured that's what I wanted to do. Now, this is the 90s where computers were huge. And I figured, all right, I'm going to continue with my computer hobby and make it a career. Took a couple classes. I didn't like it at all. It was just not for me. And so, I don't know what the average is today in college, but a lot of students change their major multiple times. So I changed my major to communication studies. I wanted to do something a little bit more, I guess, active, more public speaking, more of that type of work. And I really loved the class. And during that class, I ran into a friend who was taking criminal justice, and I was like, you know what, that sounds cool. I'm gonna look into that. So I took some criminal justice classes, took those classes and I loved it. So I switched my major. I was like, I'm going to major in criminal justice, I'm going to minor in communications. And then my goal at the time was I would like to go work with the FBI. So that was my thing. With this goal of being an FBI agent, I decided, you know what, I'm going to get some experience. I had a cousin who worked as a private investigator. So I was like, you know what, let me see if I could be a private investigator, kind of learn some surveillance, report writing, and things like that to help myself when I do apply for the FBI, you know, be a qualified candidate. Did that for about a year. Paid pretty good in college. It was nice. But as I learned more about the FBI, I didn't want to do it. By now, I'm in, I think, year 3 in my college experience, and I asked one of my professors there. I was like, "Look, I'm about to get a criminal justice degree. I don't want to go in the FBI. I don't want to be a police officer. What can I do with this degree?" And she was a lawyer, and she told me, "He's like, why don't you go to the district attorney's office along with an intern?" So I did that. I went, and I absolutely loved it. You know, going in, watching the trials, seeing the district attorneys talk to witnesses, talk to victims, seeing what goes on behind the scenes, and then also ultimately seeing a trial finish and seeing, you know, victims' families who have lost someone get a sense of justice. And I was just like, this is for me. And I decided I wanted to go into law school, specifically be a district attorney. And so the great thing about this job is that you always have the option to do the right thing. And ethically, you should be doing the right thing, because if you are practicing unethically, you lose your bar card. And you'll see in a second how difficult it is to get your license to practice law. You know, so if I have a case and, you know, as I stated earlier, if through investigation, I find out that, you know what, I don't think I got the right guy, or I can't prove the case, I can dismiss the case, you know, because that's the right thing to do. If I think I do have the right guy, then I go forward and I prosecute the case. And then also we have a big say on the sentence too. We can kind of, you know, ultimately the judge makes the decision, but I can tell the judge, like, "Judge, I think this guy gets a break," or "Judge, this guy committed a very heinous crime. He needs, you know, the longest sentence that we can give that's afforded by the law." One of the drawbacks I would say about the job, I say, is that, and you'll see, I'll play a clip in a moment. You know, unlike defense attorneys who have a client beside them and they have that interaction, we don't really have a client to pat us on the back or give us thanks. You know, we represent the state of California, and, you know, when you initially start, you're gonna be doing like DUI cases, theft cases. So there's really not like a client there that's, you know, pulling for it. You're representing, you know, the people. Over time, as you start doing murders and serious cases where someone is hurt or killed, then you actually have family coming in, and then you get some of that gratitude, you know. So just expect that, you know, if you always want to be getting patted on the back and have someone beside you, it's not like that initially, but it is there as you get more into the office. But, you know, getting justice for victims really was the #1 thing for me to go this, into this job. And on top of that, the quality of life too. You know, I think I mentioned earlier, after I graduated, and passed the bar, I did civil litigation. I was in medical malpractice defense, and it's all about money in that area of law. And it was, you know, you're fighting to either get money, you're fighting to, like, you know, give up money, and just, you know, it didn't really do it for me. You know, this being a district attorney, it was definitely, you know, the rewards was priceless. You know, even though the other job initially paid better, this job is priceless in what you get in return. So that's another thing, reason why I wanted to join. So, a little overview. We'll talk about the law school application process. I mean, that's what you have to do. You have to be an attorney first and foremost. So we'll talk about what's called an LSAT. That's a test that you have to take to get into law school. It's similar to like the SAT that you have to take to get into college, but I think it's still around, if I'm not mistaken. And then that grade that you get in the LSAT will determine what law schools that you will get into. Law schools will then look at your college experience, your grades, obviously, any extracurricular activities, and your LSAT score, and decide whether or not to admit you or not. After you go through law school, which is traditionally 3 years, you'll then have to study for the bar exam. And the bar exam, when I took it, was 3 full days. Now, begrudgingly, the new attorneys come in, they only have to take a 2-day exam. And I'll go a little bit about, what's involved in the bar exam. Then I'll talk about the DA's office, what you have to do to apply to get into the DA's office, and then I'll open up for questions at the end. Okay. So, I already talked about, my experience at Long Beach. But for those of you who are kind of thinking about this as a profession, I would definitely suggest looking at internships at other prosecutorial agencies. I know Long Beach is right there. You can go to the Long Beach City Attorney's Office and see if they have any internships available. We have a district attorney's office in Long Beach right now. You can see if they have any internships available and try to just kind of get a feel for what the work culture is like, the work hours, and just the quality of life, and that's the best way you can know anything about a career is go in and go talk to people that actually work. All right. And, some may say, well, hey, I'm majoring in history or I'm majoring in psychology. This has nothing to do with law school or being a prosecutor. A lot of my coworkers, they weren't criminal justice majors. They weren't even thinking about being a prosecutor. I have a lot of friends who are biology majors, or history majors, and so there's no particular requirement other than you should have a bachelor's degree, because that is what's required to go to law school. Okay. I'm going to try sharing my screen for a second to give you a little.
We did practice this, folks, so hopefully this does turn out.
Yeah. All right. So hopefully you can all see that. So as you can see, you have number one, college. All of you are in college. You get that degree. It doesn't matter what degree you have. So long as you get a degree, then you were obviously qualified to go to law school. You do the LSAT exam, which I'll talk about in a little second. 3 years traditionally in law school. There was a 2-year program when I went to Southwestern Law School, which is where I graduated, which is an accelerated option that you can do. I wouldn't recommend it because the 3 years I went was difficult, so I couldn't imagine cramming that into 2. There's also a 4-year part-time, which I know some people do. A lot of friends of mine who were parents at the time or juggling another job or thinking about, being a lawyer as their second career or whatnot. That's also an option at Southwestern Law School. I'm not sure if all law schools have that option, but it's a 3-year program. After you graduate law school, you take the bar exam, and you can see that picture on the right. That's essentially what it looked like when I took the bar exam. Tons of people, all writing. When I did it, we wrote. Now with technology, people are typing their exams. So it's definitely an experience, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a second. Okay. So once you do all 3 of these things and you pass the bar exam, you are eligible to practice law. Okay, so going back to applying to law school, I talked about the LSAT, and the LSAT, there's 4 areas of the LSAT. It's multiple choice. It talks about, or you go through reading comprehension, analytical reasoning, logical reasoning, and then you have essay writing. All right, it's 1 day, if I'm not mistaken. And, there's just like the SAT, there's LSAT prep courses you can take, or you can try to study on your own if you like, depending on, your time and whatnot. Once you take the LSAT, it's a good time to start thinking about the financial commitment it is to go to law school. It is not cheap. You can look to get scholarships. You can look to for financial aid. Just know that this investment is on average, could be less, a little bit more, about $150,000. Okay, I know it's a lot of money, and I'll just tell you this: like you're looking, if you're going to take out a loan, you're looking at a 15 to 30-year loan. Obviously, if you go right out of law school and you get hired with one of the big corporate law firms, you could probably pay it off a lot quicker. Okay. And then, for those who go into public service, with the district attorney's office being a prosecutor, there's a program now where if you commit and do 10 years at the district attorney's office, they will forgive the rest of your life. So just keep that in mind. If this is the path you want to go, there's definitely some relief down there. I, unfortunately, like a good responsible person, paid off my loans, and then probably a year after that, they started forgiving loans because there was no funding at the time I got hired. So there was that program didn't exist. So I'm a little upset about that. Anyway, so you got to think about, that cost of attendance that encompasses housing, food, transportation, personal expenses, not just tuition. So it's everything that goes with going to law school. Okay. And then, I would, as a tip, I would say that if you have a lot of credit card debt or whatnot, I would definitely try to pay that off or pay it down, because the amount that you can be eligible for your loan will look at any outstanding debt. Okay, so just keep that in mind. All right, so let's say you work it all out and you think this is for you and you can still do it. Then, when you're in law school and you get in, all right, you'll get accepted, hopefully, the school you want to go to. And I would highly suggest that while you're taking various law courses, kind of like college, you take the GED courses. Also try to take courses that will gear you towards being a prosecutor. So anything that deals with trial advocacy, where they kind of teach you how to be in a courtroom, because some lawyers, they don't want to be in a courtroom. They just want to sit behind a desk and write all day. That's not me. Some of you may want to do that. Others that want to be in a courtroom, well, this is your chance to get introduced into that type of thinking and techniques is these trial advocacy programs at law school. And some of them have teams where you actually compete. There's like these trial teams and you compete against other schools and you travel, and it's a great experience. And then also I would encourage you to intern. So, while you can intern with the district attorney's office or any prosecutorial agency now as a college student, you can do more in those internships when you're in law school. Once you become certified as a law student, you can actually do hearings and even a trial while in law school at a district attorney's office. We'll have a district attorney will be supervising you, and you do a trial. I remember when I was a law student, my second year, I went to Catalina Island. They have like a little court out there, and I did a trial, and the DA was in the back of the courtroom just watching. So it was an amazing experience. I bet you talk to a lot of civil lawyers, and a lot of them will tell you, I've never done a trial, and those are lawyers. So it's a good experience to do when they're law school. All right, so the law school experience, lots of reading. I've never done so much reading in my entire life. So for you readers out there, just know, it's going to be book after book after book. You're reading a lot of cases, and you're learning the law. Okay. And it's a different method of learning as well in law school. And I'm gonna play something here for you all. Let's give it a second. All right, so it's called the Socratic method, and so a lot of you probably are used to the college environment where the teacher just gets up there, the professor gets up there and just spews information and data at you, and you are furiously taking notes, and you'll be tested on the data or information at the end of the semester or year. Okay, well, this is kind of a new way of learning, and I'm going to play this clip. This is from a movie called The Paper Chase, an old movie that a lot of people watch who are thinking about going to law school. So go ahead and push play here.
Study of law is something new and unfamiliar to most of you, unlike any schooling you've ever been through before. We use the Socratic method here. I call on you, ask you a question, and you answer it. Why don't I just give you a lecture? Because through my questions, you learn to teach yourselves. through this method of questioning, answering, we seek to develop in you the ability to analyze that vast complex of facts that constitute the relationships of members within a given society. Questioning and answering. At times you may feel that you have found the correct answer. I assure you that this is a total delusion on your part. You will never find the correct, absolute, and final answer. In my classroom, there is always another question to follow your answer. Yes, you're on a treadmill. My little questions spin the tumblers of your mind. You're on an operating table. My little questions are the fingers probing your brain. We do brain surgery here. You teach yourselves the law, but I train your mind. You come in here with a skull full of mush, and you leave thinking like a lawyer.
All right, so as you can see, it's, I never had a professor who came off like that. But the method he's talking about does exist. Socratic method, you're given cases to read, and you come into school the next day and you will be picked on, not picked, I wouldn't say picked on, but your name will be called. Professor will have a big seating chart with your picture possibly, and we'll call out random names. And, they'll have you recite the facts of the case, and they'll just bombard you with questions, and it's back and forth and back and forth. And what this does is it teaches you how to teach, to think on your feet, right? So it's not just sitting there just digesting information. You are thinking out arguments, you are anticipating counter arguments, all these skills which are necessary in the courtroom when you're a prosecutor. To be an effective prosecutor, you also have to anticipate the defenses that may be brought by the defense attorney, possible questions by the judge that they may bring up during trial. So you have to be able to think on your feet, and that's what law school teaches. Okay, obviously, if you go into law and you just write contracts all day, you're probably not going to be using that skill as much. Okay. So that's just kind of a little taste of the Socratic method and how it works. Now, going into the bar exam. Now, the bar exam, as I stated earlier, when I took it in 2004, it was 3 days. Okay, so the first day, this was all in Ontario where I took it. Is 3 essays in the morning. So it would basically be a contracts question or a question on evidence. And you have to read the fact pattern, you got to spot the issues and kind of just apply the law as you were taught in law school and analyze it and give your conclusion, okay? So 3 essays in the morning and then 2 in the afternoon. And then that was day 1. Day 2 of the bar exam, you had 100 multiple choice questions, which are standardized across the whole nation. 100 in the morning and then 100 in the afternoon. That's day 2. Now, when I took it, we had a day 3. The day 3 essentially repeated day 1, which is 3 essays in the morning and then 2 in the afternoon. And I will tell you, at the end of day 3, my brain was absolutely fried. Absolutely fried. I think I actually made a mistake on the last essay, and I was just like, I don't even care. Like, I'm halfway through, I'm just going to finish it off, and if I get dinged, I get dinged. The way it worked back then is the graders would throw out one of the essays. One of the essays was kind of like a tester essay. So they had to have thrown out that one because, it didn't hurt me. So the passage rate it's one of the hardest bars, if not the hardest bar to take in the United States. I think New York might be arguably either the hardest or the second hardest out of California. To give you some statistics, this last February, bar results came out recently, I think the other week. 33% of all takers passed the bar. Last July 2022, it was a little bit higher, 52% passed the bar. And the reason why there's a difference between July and February, because July are essentially people coming out of law school and then taking the bar exam they're fresh out of law school. The people taking it in February are generally the people who failed the July bar and they're retaking it again. So just keep that in mind. If you're doing your research and you're looking at the statistics, you're like, oh my God, 30% are never going to pass. July is usually when most law students take the exam. And it's a grueling studying preparation. You finish, and I think I finished law school in May, and then I had 2 to 3 months to study, and it was 6 days of studying. I still remember it was 8 o'clock. I was at the library studying, had a little lunch from like 12 to 12:30, kept studying. 2 o'clock was my Red Bull time. I would drink my Red Bull and I would study all the way till like 5:30, 6 days a week. It was, I told myself I'm not taking this exam again. And so that's the way I approached it. And then when I took the exam, it wasn't, to me, it didn't seem that difficult because I studied so hard. So it can be done. And, you know, just take the right bar review courses. There's courses there to help you prep. And that's important, and we'll get you ready to go. Okay. So once you pass the bar exam, which I'm hoping all of you will, it's time to start applying to the DA's office. Now, if you're lucky, we'll be hiring as soon as you're done. Once you find out that you passed. As I stated earlier, I was unlucky. By the time I got my bar results and I passed the bar and I was able to practice law, the DA's office was not hiring. So I had to go do something else because you saw the loan numbers I put out there for you. You got to start paying back your loan. So that's why I went to civil first, medical malpractice, and did that. But if we are hiring, that is when you want to get your letters of recommendation. And that is hopefully when you're doing your internships in college as well as in law school, you develop some relationships with people in this area of law. And you can ask them, hey, you know, can you write me a letter of recommendation? I'm going to apply for your office. And I've written tons of them, you know, for my former law clerks that were in college and in law school. And we're more than happy to do it because we've all been there. Okay, so you want to get letters of recommendations. The application, I believe, will be online. You fill those out. And then once that's all in, you'll be contacted for an interview. I think it's still the same format. When I got hired, it's 3 interviews. The first interview, you'll go in and you'll be interviewed by either one, probably 2 or 3 district attorneys. The first interview, when I did it, they give you a hypothetical, and then you got to basically analyze it with a lot of them. The second interview, if you do well in the first interview, you'll get contacted and you'll do a second. So that's what it is. The second interview, when I went in, then it was kind of like a get to know you kind of interview, looking at your resume. You know, we talked a lot about my internship experience and whatnot. So we did that. And then if you do well there, then your interview, the final interview is with the actual district attorney. At that time in 2006, it was district attorney Steve Cooley, who was no longer a DA now, but he was my final interview. And shortly thereafter, he, you know, the office contacted me and said, hey, goodbye. So obviously I was ecstatic. That was the main reason I went to law school and invested in all that money for tuition and whatnot. So I was very, very happy at that particular time. Now, when you were hired as a DA, they don't throw you into like serious cases off the bat. Your first year, you're doing low-level crimes, a lot of misdemeanors, I stated earlier, thefts, petty thefts, maybe burglaries, DUIs, misdemeanor DUIs, where no one was injured. Kind of just get you acquainted with the courtroom and you know, the real life work. Thereafter, as you progress, then you'll get into felonies, a lot more serious. You'll get into robberies, you'll get into identity theft. You might even get into some domestic violence, maybe even some sexual assault cases. And then once you've gotten some experience there, then you can kind of decide I want to focus on a particular area of felonies. You know, so I have some coworkers, they wanted to go the domestic violence route, or others, they wanted to go into the sexual assault route. Others want to go into the fraud route. I wanted to do murder cases, and the best place to do murder cases was at the time Hartford, you know, the place to go. Okay. So, you know, it's the great thing about the office is so big, there's so many areas. So like, if you get tired of doing one area of law, which I did, I got tired and just completely burnt out doing gang murder after gang murder. I did a completely different area of law. Okay, so that's the one, a really good thing about an office. You know, you're not at a law firm where you just do contracts over and over. All right. Now, there's another slide that I skipped that I wish I would have played earlier. That kind of just encompasses, you know, what us DAs do. And let me share my screen in a second. Again. All right, so this is a clip from a TV show. Some of you probably may have been way before your time. It was called The Practice, and it was a TV show following a law firm as a defense law firm, and they would do a bunch of cases, criminal cases in court, sometimes civil. But then they also had an aspect of the show where they would have some characters who were district attorneys. And you know, when I watched it before I was in law school, I really didn't think anything about the district attorney or not even know what they did. As I became a DA, and you know, a lot of people use this particular clip in a lot of our training videos. It hits you, but I think it encompasses the reason why a lot of district attorneys become district attorneys in the first place. So I'm going to go ahead and go.
I need it, Richard. Give it to me.
What?
The speech. Why we do what we do.
Oh, I am not really in the mood after the...
Please, Richard, I need it. Please give it to me, and don't just phone it in.
Helen.
Please. Can't you see how demoralized I am?
Okay. There are heroes in this world. They're called district attorneys. They don't get to have clients, people who smile at them at the end of the trial, who look them in the eye and say thank you. Nobody's there to appreciate the district attorney because we work for the state. And our gratitude comes only from knowing there's a tide out there. A tide the size of a tsunami coming out of a bottomless cesspool. A tide called crime, which if left unchecked, will rob every American of his freedom. A tide which strips individuals of the privilege of being able to walk down a dark street or to take $20 out of an ATM machine without fear of being mugged. All Congress does is talk, but it's the district attorney who grabs his sword, who digs into the trenches and fights the fight, who dogs justice day after day after day without thanks, without so much as a simple pat on the back. But we do it, we do it, we do it because we are the crusaders, the last frontier of American justice, knowing that if a man cannot feel safe, he can never, never feel free.
Thank you.
All right, so that scene hits hard because, as I stated earlier, you will have a lot of cases where there is no one there to pat you on the back. You'll have tough cases, a lot of emotional cases involving the law, like just high stakes everywhere on, you know, from the charges to whatnot. And you'll lose some, and you'll never forget your losses, you know, because those ones hurt the most. And the wins, you know, your wins, you know, it's just, you know, like I said, priceless to give justice to everyone. So, I mean, if you have any interest at all of what I said, or what we do, you know, I would definitely try to get some internships, some clerkships out there with agencies. And if you have any questions, you can always feel free to reach out to me. I think Jenna will provide my email address for you to email me. And I think we have a couple more minutes, so I can leave it. I can open it up for questions and answers. But I think there's some people in here. You know, it's finals week.
Yeah, no, thanks, Lee. Honestly, we had questions coming in. So I just get to pick them now. So yeah, I mean, great presentation. I truly enjoyed it, but let's see, let's go with how much is your job actually like what you see on TV, like Law and Order, Cold Case, etc.? And I guess the question really is like, what does the typical day-to-day look like?
So the Law and Order, you'll be shocked. I've never seen one episode of Law and Order, not one. I think once I became a DA, I stopped watching all those law shows. It's just because it's frustrating. Some of the things that happen in courtrooms or just how they portray district attorneys, like they make us seem like we're in our office till like 11 at night, smoking a cigar, drinking whiskey, and like that's not us. That's the quality of life, having done civil litigation, I did malpractice, and do what I do now is night and day. I have a son, a 14-year-old son. I was able to coach his teams. I was able to do a lot of things because of the work-life balance that this job allows you. And the great thing about this job too is when you get assigned a case, it is yours. There's nobody going to be around, like over your shoulder, micromanaging you, which is prevalent in a lot of other areas of law. But just bottom line is there are some things that are accurate, but majority, you got to remember it's a TV show, so you want to dramatize a lot of it. So I would say some accurate, mostly inaccurate.
Gotcha. Okay. So someone wants to know, do you feel that the criminal justice system is generally fair? And if their follow-up question is, if not, can that be discouraging?
Well, so I'm talking about my experience, right? So when you're talking about fairness, you're talking about, do we have the right guy? Because nobody wants to prosecute the wrong person. And I can honestly say that, the cases where I've had doubt, I've dismissed and not gone forward. Like I said, we have an ethical obligation as lawyers to follow the code of ethics, particularly as prosecutors. And so, no case is worth my bar card because you've seen what I have to go through, what I had to go through to get it. And I can lose it by the state bar if I violate some kind of legal ethic. So with that respect, I think, it's fair as far as going forward on cases. As far as the applicability of certain laws, I think there are some indirect effects on communities. But I think the way the media is spinning it, I think there's a lot of narratives being pushed out there that are simply leaving out a lot of other facts. So for example, when I was in the gang unit, a lot of people were pushing back on prosecuting, gangs because we were targeting minority communities. But what was not being said in the media was that all the victims that were involved in those crimes were minorities, and so trying to get justice for those families, that community was equally as important. And not one of them told me to beat it or get off my case or we don't want you involved. They all wanted some sense of justice, and unfortunately the media doesn't talk about that. We just talk about the person accused. So it's a tough question to ask because there's so many aspects of this job, but from my own experience, I haven't seen anything that was straight out unfair. That makes sense.
Yeah, I imagine though with 70 cases, right? Like they say, you win some, you lose some. If there's ever a case that didn't come out as you thought it should, right? Like, is that hard for you, and how do you deal with that?
You're kind of breaking up a little bit.
Oh, my bad.
Yeah, Jenna,
Okay.
you're breaking up.
Okay, can you still hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay. Well, we're almost at time, so I'll skip right over that and then just ask you the thing that I like to ask everyone at the end, which is, what would you say to a fellow 49er who is looking to start their journey here? Like, what piece of advice would you give, or another way to phrase this is like, if you could go back to yourself when you were a senior in college, right? And you were just starting out, what would one piece of advice be that you'd give to yourself?
I would say do your research. And really know what you're getting into. To be honest, I didn't realize the huge financial commitment that I was making and how long it would take to pay off my loan. So I would, if I could talk to myself again, I would try to look for scholarships, because there are a ton of scholarships out there and money out there for people, and try to see what help, if any, that you can get. You know, I wasn't a big avid reader as a child. So if you are in the same boat, start reading, because you're reading.
Absolutely. All right. Well, I think those are great pieces of advice. What do I know? I'm not a lawyer, but thank you so much, Lee. This has been truly a great chat. I think that anyone who's interested in starting a career in law or just going down that path definitely has some things to think about now. And so we have up on here our contact info for CSULB alumni, also the address where you'll be able to find this chat afterwards. But Lee, if anyone wanted to get in touch with you, if they had questions or if they just wanted to pick your brain, how might they contact you?
So you can email me. I think you put it in the chat earlier, but lee.orquiola, it's my last name, at gmail.com, and be the best way to fill them.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Lee. And thank you to everyone who showed up today. And thank you for everyone who's watching this at home. Have a great one, and we'll see you at the next industry chat.